So our app is coming along really well so far. The next aspect of it that we need to work on is responding to the user when they press a button, specifically the start button. When they press the start button, the timer should really start counting up at the top. Handling touch events, that is, when the user taps on the screen, is straightforward with React Native, but we do need to be cognizant of the platform that we're developing for, which is a mobile device, right? When the user taps on an element, we really need to give them some feedback, some signal that their touch was recognized by the device. In our app, this is going to take the form of making sure that the button they press gets a slight color change when they press it. So if I tap on start, which I'm doing right now, I really want to get some feedback that the app is receiving that touch. To handle this color change, we're going to use another React component called Touchable Highlight. Now, don't let the name of the component scare you, Touchable Highlight. You should really think of that word simply as button, because that's all it is. A touchable highlight is really just a button. So Touchable Highlight is a part of React, so we'll import it off of the React object. We'll add Touchable Highlight, and make sure you get the spelling right on here. Next, we're going to go down to our Start Stop button. Here it is. And we're going to replace the existing view with the touchable highlight. So we'll write touchable highlight like so. Once that's in here, we're going to save it and then refresh the simulator and click the word start. You can now see that it turns just total dark for a second, so that's the default behavior. It lets our user know, hey, we got that input, thanks, like your input was recognized. So it's really just handy feedback for the user to let them know that their touch was recognized by the device. So the first thing we need to do here, obviously black isn't really a nice color to highlight this with, so let's go ahead and customize that. Unlike most color styling that we do, we're not going to add it to the style object. Instead, we're going to pass a property directly to touchable highlight. And that property that we're going to add is called underlay color. And we just are going to pass it the color gray, like so. I'm going to save, run the simulator, and we're going to tap on this again. And you'll notice it's still pretty dark, but it's not black. This gray color gives kind of a reasonable feedback to the user that, hey, we recognize that tap. So now that we have some way of letting the user know that we recognize their feedback, we need to have some way to hook into that action, some way to say, okay, the user tapped a button, now our code needs to do something. So the way that we receive this this notifier, this event of sorts, is to add another property to our touchable highlight called onPress. We're going to pass a property to onPress, and we're going to use curly braces, so it's going to be a JavaScript variable. And it's going to be a function that we're about to define called this.handleStartPress. Let's go ahead and define that function right underneath. Actually, let's go underneath the lap button here, and we'll say handleStartPress, which is going to be a function. So what's happening here is now whenever the user taps the touchable highlight, taps the start button, we have defined this property called onPress. Whenever that press event, so really a tap, occurs, React Native is going to call the function handleStartPress. And just to prove that to you, I'm going to add some code in here, which is going to be a console log, and we'll just say start was pressed. So now, whenever the user taps that button, we should see a console log of start was pressed. So let's go ahead and refresh the simulator, tap the button, and okay, maybe something's getting console logged, but something that we really haven't talked about is what happens to console log statements. How do we debug React Native? Fortunately, React Native has just about an answer to every problem you could run across in development. So it has one of the best darn debugging tools available to it, which is the Chrome browser debugger. We can open this up by clicking anywhere on the simulator, and then press the keys Command D. And this pops open our menu like so. we'll click Debug in Chrome, and then you should get a nice browser window that pops up that says React Native JS code runs inside this Chrome tag, blah, 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 and you can press this command to open the developer tools. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to expand the window a little bit, and then I'm going to press this combination of keys right here, which is Command-Option-J, and that's going to open our development tools. So now anything that we console log out of our application will pop up in these development tools right here. Another thing that we can do with these development tools is to place debugger statements in our JavaScript code. And whenever that debugger is hit, it'll pause us inside of this tab, and we can we can debug our code as if this was a web page. Really just a fantastic way of debugging. And in any future section, if you get stuck anywhere, if you find that your code isn't working, highly recommend popping open the debugger here, and it's really just a great way of debugging your code. So let's go ahead and click Start, and you'll see that sure enough, our console log pops up here, Start was pressed, and we get one of those events every time we click. You can see the counter here on the side. Let me pop this open a little bit. There we go. You can see the counter on the side incrementing as we tap on the screen. Cool. So this is, again, a fantastic tool to be using when writing code for React Native. I highly recommend making use of it and generally running a debugger instance just about all the time. Because a lot of the code that we write will, tend to be working the first time around, because, this is a pre-recorded session of videos. I don't want to have to make you watch me debug anything. We probably won't be delving into here too much, but still, I do recommend that if you come across any issues, give it a shot. It's really fantastic. So with that in mind, let's continue on to the next section.